Hi everybody, I thought I'd give you a tour of my pots today. Most of my pots have traditionally been succulents, different various succulents like this, but also I have a lot of kalanchos. I really like them. They give you some flowers for a really long time. This one's just about finished. But there are things that I can grow in Houston and not have to worry about watering every day in the summer when it's so hot. This is a ghost plant. It is so easy to grow. It features very heavily in my garden because it just pops up. All you do is break a leaf off and lay it flat on the ground and it will make another plant. So I've got a ton of that. And then here's some more kalanchos over here. Still looking pretty good. That is a red kalancho that, again, you can just break it off and stick it in the ground and make new plants. This one's from my mom's, so I've had it for probably more than 2 decades by now. This pot gets full sun most of the day. It's on cement with the background of the garage, so it gets awfully hot and it needs a lot of water. And I've tried different things in it over the years. I have a lot of cats that like to sleep in the pot and ruin whatever is in the pot, so I never know what's gonna happen with the pot every year. This has got Bidens in it right now. I bought them a year ago and had not grown them before. I thought they died in the heat last year, but then they came back, even out in this pot. They came back in the spring. So I think they need a good hard haircut several times a year. I've already trimmed this down once pretty hard. And then I've got my favorite little white zinnias that I've popped all over the garden. They grow from seed very easily. And so I think they give a lot of little sparkles around the garden. And then I've got a single sort of goofy looking zinnia called Envy. And then on the other side, this pot was also just sort of a experiment. I threw seeds in. It's got that wonderful zinnia, and then growing in the middle of it is a plant I bought. It's a Russian sage, and it doesn't like Houston's wet weather. And so I've got it in a pot that's about 50% potting soil and 50% grit. And then I've got the pot up on chocks to let it drain really well. It's not quite blooming. There's one little tiny flower out so you can see what color it is. I'm hoping that it'll be really cool looking with these big purple spikes here coming out from these white zinnias. I'm hoping that it'll be bright enough purple to show and to stand out. And then I've been growing scented geraniums this year, which was new for me, and they've been really fun. They do bloom. I've gotten some bloom, but they get so leggy. I don't quite know what to do with them. I've done one little cutting that seems to have taken, and I've clipped it off of here, and this came up, so I'm feeling pretty good about not killing it, but it seems a little bit finicky. And then this is an ivy geranium, and I just popped it in there for some color. I started getting these really cool pots. This is a brand new one that once you water for a while, they get mossy. They've already put the fun mossy business on there. I have had no luck at all doing the Martha Stewart version of, oh, just put yogurt on it and it'll get mossy. That did not ever work for me, so I found these cool pots. And I think that looks pretty, that hot pink, right next to the blue Cape Plumbago and those white cone flowers. And then I've got another one of those cool pots here with some rue in it for the swallowtail butterflies. And then here, this is more of that white zinnias next to it, which they haven't started to bloom yet. And then also in here with the rue are these little carnations or dianthus with that kind of gray leaf. I think that's a pretty combination. I'm trying to give you a look at all the tall things on the way to the pots. Now I've got some pots over here as well. This is another one of those red kalanchos that are really leggy, and I, about a year ago, chopped a bunch of big pieces off and stuck them in the dirt, and it has just turned out to be a really beautiful plant, and it bloomed really nicely this spring. And then just little combos of aloe vera, various kalanchos I can't not buy, and then some little sedums, and then again the ghost plant. This is a kalancho that I just whacked back really hard this week. It got really ratty, and I took a bunch of it off, and all the pieces that I clipped off of this I planted in a pot, and it's up on the patio. I'm hoping some of them will take root. And then these are getting ready to go on my front porch. These are pentas, and they'll go on my front porch after the things that are in my little planters up there start looking too ratty. One of the things I did, these were hanging baskets, and I had these pots. They're really, really tall pots. They'll fit right in my planter, but because that pot is so deep, I was able to take that the hanging basket, which was pretty shallow, not very much dirt, and plant it in here. That means they've got a lot more room for their roots to grow, and they've got a lot more potting soil that will hold moisture longer. So hopefully I will have to water those less often than if I had just put the hanging baskets in there. I clipped the little hangers off, and then I have a nice basket. Nice pot of flowers. A lot of times they will put 4 plants in one hanging basket, and it sometimes can be cheaper to actually buy the hanging basket. So here's one of the things that I've done, and it's full of weeds. My little project this week has been I don't want to use any herbicides, so I've just been pouring boiling water on all of this purslane. It's everywhere in the gravel, and so I dumped boiling water on this morning, and so it's looking pretty dead. It's killing the roots, I hope, and then after a couple of days they're really I need to come through and pull them up, but that's why the gravel looks so terrible. But this is one of the hottest places in the whole yard. Full sun on the gravel. It didn't make a lot of sense to put a flower bed here because it's so close to the patio, but it gets such great sun, and I've always grown succulents, and so I chose this place to sort of have a little a little theater maybe of succulents. And so I don't really know the names. I just sort of buy what strikes my fancy and find some cool pots, either that I've bought or that I've had. This one, the soil I put in these is about 50-50 potting soil, and just this is actually expanded shale. I just can buy at the store in a little bag. But this one in particular just looked terrible. And finally I took it out, put it in its own pot, and put about 10% potting soil and 90% just grit, and it perked right back up. So it really does not want any moisture in that pot. And a huge aloe vera given to me for my birthday, and it's got a little pup coming along there. And then I've got a jade plant. This is a piece of one. Here's another piece of it. You can see this trunk here, which is pretty big, was actually just a branch off of an enormous old jade plant that I bought at a garage sale 25 years ago. And last year, it all just fell apart. All the pieces just came off, literally just fell on the ground. And so this piece was a huge chunk of it, and I've stuck it in there and it's rooted. This was just one of the branches, and I just made it into its own little tree. And then I have some success with things and some others don't. Just randomly, the snails got to this, but some of these things just grow so easily, and you just lay down. Here you can see, here's an old leaf I took, I just laid it down, and you can see it's got a new little plant right there. You can see it's sort of still attached there. So it's very easy to grow. This is Sedum Autumn Joy, which a lot of people put in the ground, but last year I had it in the ground and all it did in Houston was rain last year. I felt like it would never stop raining, and it really just fell apart. It was too much rain. And so I put it up in a pot with a lot of grit in the dirt so that it would have some drainage, and it seems to be pretty happy. And this is just a little piece of an ivy geranium from the front yard that broke off, and I stuck it in there, and it rooted, sure enough. And then more aloe veras. And then again, there's no rhyme or reason. These three things have all been fine. But in this pot, which is actually a new pot, this has been fine. This has been fine. I'm just noticing how terrible this looks. It's getting ready to croak. This has been in pretty good shape, and then whatever was here died, and I just pulled that up from somewhere else. You can hear that helicopter. We live about 5 minutes from the Texas Medical Center, and so we have life flight helicopters coming by all the time. So the thing about these succulents is that once you get it going, you find one that's happy, and it can be happy for years and years and years and years, and you just leave it. These again are just stems that broke off of that enormous 25-year-old plant. I stuck them in the ground, and this is the plant that I started the whole video on. Is the mother plant of this. It got too leggy. I just chopped it off, stuck it in here, and then actually I did a swap with somebody in town for some succulents, and she just left me these, and they just grow all over very easily. And this is just a piece of that one I showed you a minute ago. And then the last succulent I'll show you is this ghost plant. It's in a strawberry pot, and it really needs to be repotted. It's been in that pot for probably 15 years and or more, and it's probably time for it to all come out and then get replanted. And then a lot of things I've done for the shade. I've done begonias here, and then back in the shade here, I've got more begonias going on, a couple of different varieties, and a couple of things like in this little pot that I've rooted. Things get too tall and goofy, and so I cut it off and stick it in the ground. And it grows, it roots sometimes. So this year, this garden, this part of the garden, all of this right here is all new. It's about 1.5 years old, and so this whole walkway is new. And so, and about half of this, starting from about here forward, is all new. And so we've got this shady fire pit area, and so I really wanted some pots back here, so that's been one of the things I've done this year, is get some more shade pots. Now, here's my lesson. I just potted these. I was at CVS of all places and found these beautiful succulents. And so I bought them down the street at CVS. I stuck them in this pot. I plopped them in that full sun area, and they just fried. And it took about a week before I really thought, oh, maybe I should have acclimatized these before I stuck them in full sun. When I moved them, the pot was almost too hot to touch. And so learn from my mistake. I'm not sure. I don't know what's gonna live or not. Maybe that I just have to, sort of pull all this stuff off the bottom and hope for the best on the top. These look not so bad. So, but yes, don't buy something that's been in the shade, even though it's a succulent that can take the heat. Don't buy something that has been in the shade for who knows how long and just stick it in the sun. Give it a minute. You can do that, I'm sure, in England somewhere, but not in Houston in June. So here are some of my other things. When it starts to get too hot, the geraniums start to fry. They stop blooming and they start to fry. So while they're still pretty, I tend to move them into the shade. And they'll bloom for a little while, and then they'll just be green and bloom again in the fall here. And then this is new to me, this beautiful little fuchsia. It just had buds all over it when I bought it. I'm not sure I even have any flowers quite open. But you can see they're going to be hot pink on the inside. So I'm excited about that. And then I put a little bit of the Euphorbia Diamond Frost in there. And then there's also a New Guinea Impatient in there. And that can take the shade and the heat. I'm not sure whether this will take the heat or not. The tag sounded like maybe it wouldn't. And then more begonias, which can take the shade here and don't have to be watered every single day, even if it's really, really hot here. And then more scented geraniums there. And then my last little things, again, geraniums, a little succulent ice plant that's already closed up for the day, new begonia for me, a little pale yellow, and a heuchera, which doesn't seem to want to get any bigger. It's been that size for a year. And then these wonderful pots. I bought these pots at a garage sale for $15 a piece last year in the middle of the pandemic. And I love they're all old and crusty and mossy. And I've got these wonderful caladiums. This gets maybe an hour or two of sun a day, filtered sun, and caladiums, and some more of those begonias. There's a pink one there. There's some little pink begonias under there. And then I've got some more of that. I've just been putting it in a lot of little pots, a little Diamond Frost Euphorbia in there. Well, I hope you had fun looking at all my pots. In Houston in the summer, I found my choices to be succulents for the sun, begonias for the shade. Have a great day, y'all. Bye-bye.